Well, I went to Warwick too, and I'm 57, but I was only 15 years old then. Oh no, no, no. No, I mean the university was only 15 years old then. I'm an informal carer. I'm not paid. My mum is 95. She became quite ill maybe 6 years ago when she fractured her hip, then she fractured another, and that was when the caring role really kicked in, and it's gradually ramped up as her needs have ramped up. She lives alone in a 3-story house. I know, and she still manages the stairs, even with 2 hip replacements. She's quite an incredible woman, really. But it's a role I didn't ask for. I do it out of duty, out of love. And I work full-time for the NHS. I'm not a clinical person, but I know a lot about older people, and I know how the whole social health network. So I really feel I've got 2 jobs in a way. But it's difficult being a carer and having a full-time job, especially for older people. I think people with children get a lot more understanding. I think there's quite a clear pattern when you have a child. You know they go to school at a certain age, that they have their developmental milestones at that age. But when you're caring for an adult, you never know. It's not so structured, and well, something could happen day or night. So I'm on call constantly, basically. It's usually, you know, you never know when they're going to decline, but there's that sort of structure. So it's that sense of uncertainty, and I never know, will I be able to go to that wedding, or will I get to that event? There's a lot of guilt in being a carer, you know? Expectation. No, not for my mother, amazingly. She's never sort of said, I mean, basically we're like ducks paddling away to keep her life the same house, the same standard of living, people coming in, which she doesn't really like. Me and my brother and sister, we're paddling away to try and keep everything running smoothly. And I don't really know if she needs to know. But I know that one of her neighbours, because I'm unmarried, thinks I should go and live there, give up my life. But I'm not going to do that. So yeah, there's a lot of guilt that you're not doing enough, you're not being there. It's all about other people's expectation. I think it comes down to the carers. They think, oh, well, you're the daughter. Yeah, I've had periods where I haven't been able to cope very well, just periods of anxiety. So it does affect your mental health. And that's quite a difficult thing to talk about in terms of how you disclose. I think that should be on record, that caring is not without consequences. Luckily, not on my physical health, but on my mental health. And, you know, a lot of my anxieties are not with my mother directly. She doesn't make any demands implicitly, yes, but it's around managing everyone else's anxieties. And these people who have all those expectation, and there's one person, he keeps on saying, why haven't you sorted out a living person? Why haven't you sorted out? I can't understand. Why can't you resolve it? This is what I did in my mother's case. And I'm like, yeah, but that was 20 years ago. Different situation. Every email, every text is like, what you doing? What you doing? What you doing? I'm like, get off my case. So people think you're qualified to, yeah, you're judged. But then I guess parents are judged too. But I don't choose it. That's the thing with carers. I don't have children. I'm not married. I chose that because I enjoy having a career. I like my freedom, and I've not had anyone to depend on me. Well, not until 5 years ago. I go to a carers support group very infrequently, and very frustratingly, all the carers events are during the day. The majority of the group are women. No, there's no men. I think it's the word. Who wants to be called a carer? You know, I wonder if it's because it's all women. We're so exhausted by caring. You don't have the extra energy to put into advocating for yourself, and the energy you have left over, you spend with your family or just enjoying yourself. And it's a complex world. It's not an easy world to navigate. I feel like a care coordinator. Yeah, that's actually what I am. I'm not a carer, I'm a care coordinator. I mean, they say the care system is broken, and yes, I think it is. I don't think it's funded properly, so local authorities, since austerity, have had their budgets cut. I think there's a whole army of unpaid carers, and even though they have these care assessments, health and social care is not joined up. I think the whole care industry needs looking at. I mean, there's a lot more regulated with the CQC going on in there, doing checks, but they only come in every 2 or 3 years. So say you go onto a care agency, you see the CQC ratings, and you say, oh yes, it says good or outstanding, but that's like only a visit. So I think funding, lack of advocacy, relying on a whole army of unpaid people who don't have the energy, the motivation to change the system. I know it would be interesting to see what happens in other countries, but of course, other cultures look after their older people. They can't understand how the British are. I mean, it does sound a bit awful when you think about it. I think care workers get a bad deal, actually. I mean, these carers are rushing around. Sometimes they don't get paid for travel. There was a thing on the TV the other day. Someone had like 11 calls a night. That's outrageous. I mean, nobody else working in conditions like that. They're often lone workers. No, the whole industry needs to be overhauled and regulated and paid better. And we have to pay more. Well, if we have to pay more taxes, then we have to pay more taxes. It's an aging population. It's a no-brainer. I hope it's going to get there by the time I'm old. My mum fell at home in March, just before the lockdown. I was called out by the alarm company. I mean, she's normally really resilient, but she was in so much pain, and the paramedic took 4 hours to arrive, even though she was on the priority list. Due to the emerging pandemic, when they arrived, they weren't wearing COVID PPE, which actually was good, as they can look quite intimidating, especially when they're trying to communicate with an older person with cognitive deficit. There was a lovely female Australian paramedic who I remember kept saying, she kept calling my mother my dear. She was Australian. They gave her Etanox for the pain. She kept saying, I can't breathe, which really resonates with the BLM. My mum had sustained 3 rib fractures, so not great when there are respiratory infections circulating around the hospital at the moment. I mean, as usual, there were never any decent snacks or food. So it was another trip to Tesco's for a prawn sandwich, the only edible thing my mum will accept. I remember one discussion which really stuck in my mind from a junior doctor in charge. You must get your mother home or she is a sitting duck for COVID. Not a great choice of words, but he got his point over. I looked after my mum for the first 3 days of discharge and stayed with her at home for the week. I quite enjoyed it. I had to be so careful with hygiene. I was also busy at the hospital, so I could have infected her. That was exhausting. But the hardest thing about that period was arriving home late and going to the local corner shop and finding the shelves empty. I mean, stripped of everything, especially fresh fruit and veg. I just had to eat what was in the, cupboard at work. And then the hospital volunteers mobilised, and now we have hot food for frontline staff. But in the early days, it wasn't in place, and I would have done anything for a hot meal. I rarely felt alone, but at that time, I did. My mum's bemused by the lockdown. She said even in the war, it was not like this. She keeps asking if various places are open, and I have to remind her that they're not at the moment. She needs a new iron, and I say, there are no shops open for irons, even though actually that's just a diversion. She loves ironing, but it's risky. I was asked to retrain for a frontline role in case our colleagues became sick. It was a dilemma. I felt my first duty was to my family, and during the lockdown there were bans on visiting family. I really miss my usual activities, socialising, which are a distraction. But I'm pleased to be working in the NHS at such a pivotal time and providing support for my mum, save lives, stay home, protect the NHS. 3 simple directives, but not that easy to execute. When the clapping for the NHS and carers started, I clapped for the carers looking after my mother day in and day out. I clapped for myself. I clapped for my colleagues. But I'm not comfortable saying my colleagues are heroes.